All right. Welcome, everyone. So glad that you're here. Type in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. Hi, Valerie. We have two Jessica Smiths. What in the world? That is so fun. Awesome. So great. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. So go ahead and share in the chat where you're joining us from. And let us know, what age are your kids? I've got two kiddos, and so I'm joining you guys from Fort Worth, Texas, and I've got two kiddos that are in school right now. I've got a 13-year-old, and my 9-year-old turns 10 in just a few days, which is pretty crazy. Florida, Missouri. Awesome. Actually, Miracle, you're in Missouri, aren't you? I'm pretty sure Miracle's in Missouri as well. Yeah, that's great. How cool. Okay, so our kids are very similar ages. How awesome. Love that. Okay. Well, if you know you have friends that are supposed to be joining you for this live training, I typically try to do this live streamed into the Facebook group, but we're going to do something different this time. So if you've done a Pioneer Parent Challenge with me before, what we're doing this time is going to we want to see your face. We want to connect with you in Zoom, and we can have just a greater experience where we can see each other face to face. So if you're just now joining, we're sharing where we're signing in from and the age of our kiddos, and we'll get started. Now, if you have not officially registered, make sure you go to thepioneerparent.com, because that's how you're going to get our digital workbook, and you'll stay in communication with us so that you can be reminded. We like to send reminders of when we go live. I don't know about you, but even though I put something on my calendar, sometimes I forget things. And so we want you to stay connected with us so that you don't miss out anything. And depending on when you join, if you're brand new to this group, our admin of the group is Miracle Mays. We do have two Miracles in the group, but Miracle Mays is our admin of the God Help Me parenting group. Look for a DM from her in your Facebook. She's sending direct messages. She loves to welcome everyone into the group. So if you are like, oh, I haven't seen that, there is a special place in your Facebook Messenger where it has like people you don't know that you're not friends with, it'll have a little request section over there so you can connect with her. And we want to get to know you personally so that we can help you with whatever you need in terms of Christian parenting. So connect with Miracle in your DMs. Typically, we'll have you do hashtags in the chat. So there is a special hashtag I want everyone to be aware of. If you put hashtag question in the chat, that lets me know you have a question. And what we try to do is we try to get to as many of those questions as we can with the time we're given. So if there's a burning question that's relevant to the topic we're discussing for the day, put hashtag question and then add the question that you would like for us to answer. Some of you have already registered for this, so kudos for you, you're on top of it. But if you're like me, I register for things and then I kind of forget in my swamp of thousands of emails, like where that specific email is. So if you're like me, you're going to look for the subject line, your checklist for the Pioneer Parent Challenge, because that's where you're going to find your digital workbook and other kinds of things. We even have a link in there so that you can sync your calendar with ours. So this is one of my favorite features, that we literally pay money so that you can sync your calendar. Yes, we want to love you really well because we know that family life is really hard, and anything that makes life easier is super awesome. So Miracle, if you could drop that link for the add event calendar. Thank you so much. So it's in the chat right now, but you can also find that in your email that we send to you. So we want you to sync your calendar, grab your digital workbook. If you can't find your digital workbook, don't worry about it. Just grab a piece of paper and you can follow up in your email later. And if you still can't find that with the subject line, your checklist for the Pioneer Parent Challenge, then DM Miracle in Facebook so that we can connect you with the resource that you need. And it would not be good of me to withhold this next piece of information. So I definitely want you to be aware, even though we go live for 3 days talking about foundations to raise kids who are emotionally healthy, relationally mature, and spiritually wise, we actually have a workshop style experience after our free training each of these 3 days. So for a small amount, only $37, you guys can join the VIP experience. So Miracle will drop that link as well. Immediately as soon as we're done here, we switch over to another Zoom link and we have a workshop style. You're going to get another digital workbook for that. And one of the things we're going to be doing in that VIP workshop style group is you will have more interaction with me, more questions that can get asked and answered, but also we're going to specifically spend time hearing what God is saying about your child. Each of our kids have different things that we love and that drive us a little batty. Let's be honest, parents, we love our kids. We would give our left arm, we would die for them, but there are some personality traits that each of our kids carry that are unique to them and a little bit upsetting. Maybe that's not the right word, but like maybe you have a child who whines a lot. I know that has been a trigger for me, like with my kids, especially when we're little, like whining, like would be one of those buttons for me. So if you have like a kid who whines or sometimes gets like emotionally sensitive, easily offended, we're going to practice hearing what God is saying about their unique divine character and quality and gifts. Because it's really important that we have God's view of our children so that we can love and disciple them really well, because all of parenting is discipling. So we're going to be doing that in the VIP as well. So not just specific to emotionally sensitive, even your ones that are defiant, strong-willed, stubborn, you name it, we're going to go after all of those parenting and practice hearing what God is saying. Because really at the end of these 3 days together, my goal is to help you recognize how to partner with God in your parenting. So we'll share that VIP link in the chat. If you look over on the right side, that's where you can do that. And I think that's about it. So I'll be paying attention to the chat for other questions. So you guys are ready. If you're ready to get started, just type in the chat, say, I'm ready. Who's ready to get going? Yay, Valerie says she's ready. Awesome. Miracle says she's ready. Erica's ready. Excellent. All right, Jessica. Great. Both Jessicas are ready. All right, here we go. So grab your workbook and I will share my screen in just a minute so that you can follow along. But one of the biggest things that's so important is that we have the right perspective of parenting. I don't know about you, but when kids throw a fit, or push back and give you like defiance, like you tell them to do something and they're giving you attitude. Maybe they are insulting you, being very disrespectful. There are times, if we all admit this, there are times that we don't handle it well. Can I just see a show of hands, like who has had those moments, those super not proud parenting moments? Okay, if your hand's not raised, like you're probably distracted and you didn't really fully hear what I had to say, because every person is so guilty of it. Parenting is a lot of hard work. And the reality is we sometimes don't respond really well because of our own capacity. Like, let's say we had a very busy week for work, or we have family stuff going on outside of our household family, and we don't respond really well. And then we end up having parent guilt and shame. How many of you guys have had that? Parent guilt and shame. You feel like you're a terrible mom, and you feel like you don't know what you're doing. And the reality is we don't know what we don't know. And oh, shoot, I'm trying to share my screen, but I think maybe it's frozen. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. All right, awesome. Well, that's most important. But for some reason, I'm not able to share my screen with the workbook. That's okay. We'll figure that out in just a minute. But a lot of times we just don't know how to help our kids. And that is the purpose of our community and trainings like this, because there is a difference between learning from a teacher and going through a course, because teachers teach what they learned, but mentors teach what they've walked through. The difference is who pays the price. Because if I'm a teacher telling you some really great points, and by the way, I will introduce myself and my background and why I even have the honor of teaching on this topic in just a moment. I am a mom, but I am also a marriage and family therapist. But a lot of times teachers will teach what they've experienced, what they read in books. And so I got my master's degree before I was a mom, and I learned some really great principles. I learned about play therapy, how to use play as a form of therapeutic means to help children and even adults work through emotional struggles, got the degree in family psychology, all the things, and I became a mom. And I was like, Why didn't anyone tell me this? And of course, you can't learn some things in a book, right? You guys know that some things like only Life University is going to teach you. So as a mom, I remember struggling so bad as like a first time mom. When I first had my kiddo, I was like, how do people do this? And I don't care if you've had an amazing childhood or you feel like you like were very lacking in childhood. Regardless of what your background is, like when you become a parent, there are some different struggles as moms and dads that we're trying to figure out and work through. But some things you don't figure out until you have the experience of it. So I remember what, as a mom, I was, my daughter was a week old, and you guys know with newborns, the first 7 to 10 days, your baby's supposed to gain that weight, the birth weight back, because they lose it and then they're supposed to gain it all back. But if they don't, then there's concerns. And that was where I found myself. My pediatrician shared words with me that almost broke me. She said that we have got to be aggressive. My firstborn was not nursing very well. And she's like, we need to be aggressive, whether you need to supplement and do formula with breastfeeding or whatever, like whatever you need to do, we need to do it to help her gain the weight, or she has failure to thrive. And that is the biggest fear, is that our kids have some kind of dysfunction or problem. So I don't know where you are at right now, but maybe you find yourself in this group because you're rocking and rolling. Maybe life is going super great and you just want to add some extra tips so that you can polish up on your parenting. Or maybe you're like many people where you do have some concerns. Maybe you have a child who's struggling with anxiety and insecurity, and you see that them suffering in peer groups or even in school. Maybe you have a child who has identity issues and they're struggling with being confident, sticking up for themselves. Maybe they're suffering from low self-esteem. Or maybe you just have a child that's just having a lot of defiance. Maybe they get along great with peers, not the peers that you would choose for them, but you're struggling in your relationship with them and you just don't know how to parent them. And so this is really the goal of the Pioneer Parent Challenge. Is I define a pioneer parent as a mother or a father who steps up to end toxic generational family patterns and trailblazes something new for their children and their family. And so our goal is that we as pioneer parents, we have to end excuses. We can't blame our parents for all of our parenting mistakes. We have to own where we're at. We need to accept responsibility, walk in humility and teachability, and encourage others to do the same. But I want you to know that this is a place that's very safe for us. We can share problems. I'm going to share with you lots of different struggles that I've had. And I hope that you feel comfortable doing the same. So with that same child, fast forward, I remember like calling the lactation consultant, freaking out, panicking, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. All I know is I don't want to give up on nursing. This was my heart and my goal to be able to do this. So how many of you guys have like, you have a vision for parenting and then for some weird reason, it's not working out the way you planned. Maybe it was a birthing plan, or maybe it was something else. Maybe you like have this dream to have children who like love Jesus and now you see them kind of walking away from the faith. Like whatever it is, like sometimes we have a plan and things don't go according to plan. Well, so here I was hoping that I could do nursing and I'm panicking. So I called the lactation consultant who's also a nurse, and they knew me a lot. I called that hotline all the time during that first month for sure. But I remember calling her, and I remember I still see it to this day. I was panicked calling her from my cell phone in my living room with my baby on my nursing pillow, like I'm nursing her. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I can't tell if she's getting enough. And here I am asking all these questions. And that nurse, who was very wise, told me, you need to stop panicking right now because your fear and panic is not going to help your child. And you guys, some of you guys hearing that are like, that's kind of rude. That would be offensive to me. But listen, it was almost like I did not hear the words, but I heard the message. It penetrated past all of my anxiety, kind of shook me out of that. And I really don't even remember word for word what she said, but it penetrated my heart. And what I heard was the mission. Mom, hold yourself, put yourself together, because when you're in fear and panic, you cannot help your daughter. And that was the wisest advice I ever heard, Not only were we able to finish nursing, we made it to 9 months, but we were able to do that. She was able to gain the weight. In fact, she chunked up so big. She was a chunky baby, so cute. Now she's like chopsticks over here. She's so tall and skinny, but she finally gained the weight. I got relief, but I learned life wisdom that there are times as mothers and fathers that we have got to take a look at our own anxiety, stress, whatever is going on in our world, and we have got to put it to the side, not stuff it, but put it to the side so that we can be emotionally available for our children. So that's what we're going to do on day one. Day one, you're going to learn from my experiences, not just professionally, but also personally, on what that looks like to actually divide your own personal issues and put it aside so that you're not putting that on your kids and passing that on to the next generation. What we're not saying, I'm not saying dissociate. I'm not saying numb off to your feelings. I'm not saying stuff it and deal with it and suck it up. That is not what I'm saying. All right. There's actually a place where you can be wholehearted in your parenting, still have struggles, but also not pass it on to your kids. So if that is something you want to learn more about, I want you to just type in the chat, tell us more. Tell us more. Because this is actually the difference between teaching. Teaching is like, here's some tips, and then you're going to have to pay the price. You're still going to have to apply these principles. But when you partner with a mentor, someone who's actually experienced something, who's teaching you from a place of experience, that is what a mentor is. They've already paid the price, and they're going to share with you the anointing, the grace. So there is grace available for these next 3 days in this training in family life and in parenting for Christian parents specifically. I'm going to help you map that out so that, yes, there's going to be some hard work for you to do, but you're going to have an accelerated breakthrough because of the experience that I've gone through specifically in this area. So let's go ahead and take a look at our workbook now. Let's see if my thing is still frozen. Hopefully, okay, it looks like it's working. Awesome. All right, so let's pull up my screen. Again, if you don't have this workbook, no worries. We're going to find a way to make sure you have that. Definitely check your emails later. And if after all that you still can't find it, please message Miracle. But it could just be a matter of making sure you're registered for the Pioneer Parent. All right. So, and at the end of the day, a piece of paper is certainly useful. So my name is Diana Bigham. I started this Facebook group years ago because I really wanted to help Christian parents, but also I found myself helping not just parents, but people of different stages, even like single adults. And here more recently, I felt like the Lord was saying to just go all in on the parenting aspect. So even though I work with children, single adults, and parents, both genders, this group specifically is targeted for the Christian parents. So sometimes we will use my Facebook group for different kinds of things, but here lately, the Lord, you're just going to see a whole lot more specifically on parenting. And I've been doing therapy for over 15 years. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a registered play therapist. And even though I've been doing therapy for a number of years, what I've really been doing a lot of recently is prevention. I'm going to give you one-liners every now and then. So if you're like, wait, what was that? Don't worry, you can always catch it on replay, but get ready. I have one for you right now. It is this: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. What that means is if you just spend just a little bit of effort on prevention, it is going to be by far outweigh the cost of having to pay for treatment. If I can just work on my own mental and emotional issues, my parenting issues, I can raise a healthy child now as opposed to paying the price of therapy later. I want you guys to guess for me. Type in the chat, how much do you think the cost of therapy is per hour? Some of you may know, some of you may not know, but just type in the chat, how much is therapy per hour? All right, so I have one person voting here, two people. Okay, great. All right, so I see 150, 100, 160 to 200. Yep. You are 100% accurate. Now, there are some therapists that offer sliding scales. You can get graduate students to go like a lot lower because they're trying to gain experiences. But for most people, most places, it's going to range between $100 to $200. Now, there's going to be higher than that and lower than that, depending on where you live and the person you are hiring. Now, imagine, like everyone just do math right now. Do the math. If you were to see a therapist every week, or your child to see a therapist every week for 8 weeks, let's pretend that 8 weeks is plenty of time to treat anxiety or depression. I'm going to laugh at that because it's typically not 8 weeks, but let's just say it's 8 weeks. Do the math for me. Whatever number you put in the chat or you think it might be, multiply that by 8 and then put the total in the chat. Valerie says $1,200. So treatment could be, best case scenario, $1,200. And it could go on up from there as well. So let's just pretend it's $1,200. That's the only price I see in the chat as of right now. So this is on the lower conservative end. Conservative as like, well, actually it's not really conservative. Conservative would be like to go higher, right? To go higher just to cover your bases. Now, imagine, and maybe some of you have walked through this and maybe some of you haven't, but imagine writing a check, $1,200 check that you only get 2 months of support. 2 months of support for your child. Not only did you have to write a check for over $1,200 or maybe have insurance to share some of that, but now your child has to work through the pain of having depression, the pain of having anxiety disorder, the pain of having trauma. So not only did they have to have treatment, but they had a life experience of pain. Now, some of you guys have personally walked through what it's like, and I hope that you have had a good experience with therapy. But now I want you to think about this. What would it be like if you can avoid that by just doing some prevention? If you think that's worth it, I want you to put in the chat, worth it. Who would be willing to pay $1,200 just to prevent treatment? Would you pay the same price to prevent mental health issues as you would to treat it? I would gladly, if there was if someone said you can write a check that's going to help you prevent devastating issues in your life, or at least teach you how to walk through it in a healthy way up front before you have the problem, would that be worth it? If you think that's worth it, put worth it in the chat. Okay. I hope I'm drilling down. The point here is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So you just showing up for 3 days for a free training is that ounce of prevention. But it did cost you, because even though it's a free training, it actually costs you in time. So you may pay in time. You may pay financially out of your pocketbook to get like a consultant or a coach for prevention. You may pay emotionally and financially for the cost of treatment. You may pay, but what are you willing to pay? That is the key. What are you willing to pay and how much? So for those who really want prevention, you are going to spend a lot of certainly time to learn the strategies. So what we're doing is we are working with Christian parents on prevention, training you how to think like a therapist so you can discipline like a pro and end up having confident children with character. And so that's what our game plan is. I cannot emphasize it enough. This is going to be an incredible journey. But just as that very wise lactation consultant told me, you have got to make sure that you manage your own issues so that you can be there for your kids. So wouldn't you know it, on day one, I guess what we're going to talk about on a parenting group. We're going to talk about you as the parent. Here's another one-liner. It's also in your workbook, so you don't have to write it down if you have the workbook, but it says, neglecting our own self-care is not a sustainable way of living. My mother is a first-generation immigrant from South Korea, and I remember, I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and growing up, I remember my mom making sure we had seconds or even thirds, like whatever. She would just make sure we were fed. Immigrant women really love to feed their children. Any other immigrant families or someone who has immigrant, like food is really important. So my mom would make sure that we were well fed, taken care of, And I noticed she would often get leftover foods. Like she would have like the worst part of the chicken, so to speak, and she would have like these little, she would have these little pieces of like the pie, like she would barely get things. So she would make sure everyone else was taken care of, and she would even find something else to eat if she had to. And now, even though sacrifice is a normal place for a parent, it should not be an everyday kind of lifestyle because it's not sustainable. When I was a new mom, I was so exhausted, panicked, trying to figure out how to like keep this human alive and do what I'm supposed to do, figuring out like what does it look like to raise this human. I would sometimes forget to eat. And there was one day I forgot to eat. And here I was washing bottles and whatnot, changing diapers, and I felt really drained and sick to the point where my husband was worried about me. And I was like, I'm just gonna go take a bath. And I was soaking the bathtub, and he was looking at me, and he is in the medical health field. And so he was like, and he realized this lady is not eating. He's like, you've got to take care of you. You need to eat. And I didn't even realize, like, oh my goodness, I actually haven't eaten. You're just so sometimes consumed with things on your mind or activities around you that you neglect your self-care. How many of you have been guilty of neglecting self-care? Right? Like in those early days, obviously with newborns, sometimes you literally have to sacrifice taking a shower. I'm not talking about some of those kinds of things. I just mean certainly after the newborn phase, we have got to find ways to reprioritize our self-care. Here's why. You cannot give what you do not have. If I want to raise children with good coping skills, I have to know how to cope with my own emotions. Because not only do I want to tell my kid how to take care of their feelings, I want to be able to show them how to do that. And if I don't know how to do that, what am I going to be doing? I'm going to be teaching my children principles. Remember what I said earlier in this live? There's a difference between a teacher and a mentor. I want you to become mentors for your children, because if you just teach your kids principles, they're still going to have to pay the price of the lesson. Yes, they're still going to have to learn how to do coping skills, but it's not going to be as difficult if you know how to do it also. So this is really key. All right, let me kind of stop the screen share for just a moment and kind of see where we're at in the chat. Do you guys have any questions so far? All right, I'm going to take a few questions right now. So let me go ahead and switch to gallery view so I can kind of see who's with us. And Miracle, I don't know if you can, but can you check the Facebook group to see if anyone else needed to be let in on the Zoom? You may already be doing that. All right, so if you want, you can unmute, but I'd love to hear, like, what is your takeaway so far? What are you hearing right now? Your greatest takeaway so far? Yeah, go ahead and unmute. Are you able to unmute?
Yes, hello. This is
Hey.
so good. Not my first, but so many nuggets. So I do have a question. The last statement that you mentioned is like, be a mentor to your child, not just a teacher. My question is, why did you say because later on they will pay the price?
Yeah. So, for example, when my dad says, hey, make sure you clean your room, and that he's teaching me principles, right? Like clean your room, make sure you make your bed this way and do that. And he's telling me principles. But let's say he doesn't know how to make a bed. I'm going to still have to figure out how to do it on my own. He can tell me a lot of information, but if he doesn't show me, then I'm not going to know how to do it. I'll still have to figure it out on my own, whether I'm YouTubing or I outsource and find someone else like my mom or someone else to show me how to make the bed.
Got it.
Whereas if I have my dad to come alongside me to say, this is how you do it. Now I'm still going to learn it, but it's not going to be as difficult, because there's a difference between like principles and then actually helping our kids practice it. So I can tell my kid, hey, I know you're really stressed, so just take some deep breaths. And I'm just telling her what to do. But if I know how to do it, I can do it with her. Like, hey, it's like this. Let's just take some deep breaths right now. Just in through our nose, out through our mouth. And you're going to have to do this several times. And if you can make your exhale a little bit longer than your inhale, what it does is it sends signals into your body and your brain to slow down, and your heart rate actually slows down, so you'll feel better, but you got to stick with it a little bit. And like, what about this, Mom? What about, I'm thinking about this. Oh, sometimes that does happen too. You're right. And when those situations happen, then we're going to do this. Do you know what I mean? So I'm actually now saying, oh, yeah, so I know from experience. That's the difference. And so my kid's still going to have to learn how to do coping skills or make their bed. But when a parent knows how to do it, it's very different. It's easier.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. What we're not saying is your kids will never have any problems at all in their life. They're going to have less problems because you're being proactive and you're teaching them things before problems happen. But even when problems happen, you're going to be able to know how to walk them through that. And you want your kids, ideally, you want all your children's problems to happen while they're still in your home. So you can't, their greatest problems in life, hopefully, so that you can walk them through how to handle difficult situations, you know? Thank you for asking, Valerie. All right, any other takeaways that you guys want to share? All right, I've got another one-liner for you, and feel free if you guys have a question, you can also raise your hand in the Zoom. You can do that by clicking on the reactions and just select where it says raise hand, and that way we can come to you. All right, so here's another one. The goal is not perfect parenting. It's about practicing perfect love. Remember, we all admitted that we've had some super proud, not proud moments, I should say not proud moments as a parent. I do too. I still sometimes have my not super proud parenting moments. This is not about being a perfect parent. It's about practicing perfect love, because you're going to make mistakes. You still have your, like, heart healing is a lifestyle. You still, like, yes, you're a new creation in Christ. You're born again. The old is gone. Behold, the new has come, is what scripture says. But it says that we are made new by the renewing of our minds. So there is this lifestyle they have to go through. And so the cool thing is you can just apologize and repair the relationship, you know, and with each repetition, you're also learning. So if you are a parent that can commit to constantly growing yourself, what's happening is your ceiling is your child's floor from which they launch from. And if you're constantly working on yourself, even when your kids are adults, out of the house, as long as you're still working on yourself and your relationship skills, your kids actually get that inheritance too. I'm going to prove it to you, because some of you have older kids and you're like, I think I might be too late, you know, or you have other situations that you're thinking about. Imagine if you have a 75-year-old parent who you kind of had some relationship issues in childhood and the adolescent years, and your parent called you up and said, hey, Erica, I just have been doing a lot of thinking and reflection, and I feel like I owe you an apology. Erica, like, what's going on, Dad? What do you mean? And maybe that one might be newsworthy right there, you know, like the fact that your dad's apologizing, right? But let's say your parent says, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I feel like I realize now, like, I wish I was more patient with you when you were younger. There are a lot of times that I just think I had it wrong in parenting, or I felt like the parent always knows best. You're a child, you just need to do whatever you're told. And I think I had this militant attitude with you that didn't give you room to express your opinions, whether right or wrong didn't matter. Like, I didn't give you room to be heard. I am so sorry for that. I wish I can go back and change that. Will you forgive me? Do you feel like that would make a difference in your life? Absolutely. Absolutely. Just thinking about that, it's so crazy. What are we learning? We're learning that you can restore family relationships at any point. You're never too late. Your kids are never too old. Now, sometimes kids may not want to receive that, or like, oh, prove it, you know, and maybe they're hard-hearted and they can't receive an apology, but that's totally different, because that can be a lot of like slew of other things and strategies to reconcile that relationship, or at least heal that. But the point is you're never too late. That does make a difference. Everything you do does make a difference for your children, even if they're out of your house. That is good news. And you know what else? means good news, the gospel. So every day we're going to be making sure that you understand that this is on God's heart. If you look in Malachi, I think it's Malachi 4:6-6:4. Where is it at? In Malachi, it talks about towards the end there. It's the last book of the Old Testament. It is God's desire to turn the hearts of the fathers, that includes mothers, parents to their children, children to their parents. I'm just going to read it to you. Yeah, it says in Malachi 4:6, I'm just going to read that first part there. He will turn the hearts of the parents to their children, the hearts of the children to their parents. This is very significant. It's so significant, it says, or else like, talks about destruction. Like this is on God's heart that we have healthy hearts, healthy relationships. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a homework assignment. And then for anyone who's in VIP, we're going to switch over there in just a moment. In VIP today, what we're going to do is we're going to practice spending time in God's presence to get rid of some of that stuff. So as parents, we kind of like have our own issues and stress and anxiety. And we agree, yes, I need to find a way to set that to the side, not stuff it, but set it to the side so I can be available and present with my kids. Be a great listener, hold space for them, be a safe person that they can go to, because I want to be the person they can go to for problems. And so if that's you, you're going to want to be in VIP today. We're going to literally practice how to, all those things that we stuff to the side, we're going to practice spending time in God's presence to heal our hearts, renew our minds, to be refreshed so that we can be more present and available for our kids. We are going to do giveaways each day. Let's see. I think we will start tomorrow. Miracle, we'll start tomorrow. We'll do giveaways tomorrow. And I want to point out one more thing I forgot to mention. In the Facebook group, there's little tabs, on the side or at the top that says guides. You're going to want to check out the guides in Facebook group, because after every single live training, we're going to add the replay, homework assignments, different things that are going to be organized. Think about a syllabus and a table of contents. Like it's going to be under the guides section. So that's where you'll find the homework post where you can add your homework. If you do homework every single day before 8 a.m. Central Time, we will put your name in a drawing so that you can enter to win. VIP will be about 30 minutes long. Yeah, about 30 minutes long. All right, great question. Any other questions, you guys? You can raise your digital hand if you guys have any other questions. All right, I don't think there is any. When you do your homework, when we post that, you're going to put Pioneer, hashtag Pioneer1. That way we can find it. All right, let's go right back to the workbook. I'll give your homework assignments and we're going to switch over to the Zoom call. All right, so there are 4 main or primary dimensions of your health. In any one of these areas are having issues, it can affect the other areas. Also, any of these that are doing well are going to influence how you feel in the other areas. So we need to take care of our soul. That's your mind, will, and emotion. So how's your the psychology of you? How are your thoughts and your emotions as an individual parent, right? And then how's your relationship with the Lord? This is your spirit man. Do you spend time talking with the Lord? What does that look like? How are your other relationships, like your relationship with your spouse if you're married? We do have single parents in here as well. How are your relationships with your family members, your friends? And how is your physical health? Your physical health affects your relationships and your emotions. So how are you doing there? So just overview, do a personal inventory. How are you in these areas? And here's your simple homework is you're going to put in the group with the hashtag Pioneer1 so that we can count that by 8 a.m. tomorrow, Central Time. You're going to answer this question. In what way or ways has neglecting self-care affected how I parent? In what ways has neglecting self-care affected how I parent? And then just commit to one small actionable goal. When I say one small actionable goal, I'm just going to commit to drinking more water. I'm just going to commit to trying to go to bed earlier at this time, something along those lines. And then we do have space on here for you to add notes. And then each day we'll just pick up right where we left off. All right, I think that's it. All right, very good. Okay, so let's go ahead and end in prayer. And for those of you that want to join the VIP, you can do that right now and hop over in that Zoom group. But God, I just thank you so much for everyone on this group. Lord, I just release over them just a spirit of peace over them. Lord, help them to feel encouraged by you, God, that you redeem all things. You are the great redeemer. And just like you say in Romans 8:28, that you remind us that you work all things out for the good of those who love you, who've been called according to your purposes. So whether we've made mistakes and we're recounting them, or we're recognizing we have new goals that we want to make in our parenting, Lord, help us to discern your voice of encouragement and confidence that you're directing them right here where you want them. God bless them in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, you guys, I will see you tomorrow. Otherwise, if you're on VIP, we'll see you in that group call. All right, bye.